Okay, so thanks so much for talking with us about what you've been working with. And maybe if you can start just by introducing yourself and
Sure.
telling us a little bit about the organization you worked with.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Glenn Terrell. I am founder of an executive leadership coaching firm here in Seattle, Washington. About half my work has been historically one-on-one coaching for founders, co-founders sometimes, and the other half has been with helping their leadership teams reach an elusive goal. My typical client tends to be high growth. So they, have started within the last 10 years and they've experienced, and I work in the startup world, but this is the company that we're going to talk about today is privately held. It's in a fairly traditional industry, engineering services. Their clients are developers and, construction firms that are focused on building out downtown Seattle in residential office buildings. They are founded by a couple that have been together for, I guess, the last 11 years. How I came across the client just through a referral, and I sat down with one of the principals over a bad Korean barbecue and said, tell me about your business. Tell me where your pain points are. And they had a period of high growth. Seattle, by virtue of its Amazon and all its other sort of build up, had helped assist in their growth, but they were experiencing and exhibiting a couple of fundamental, I guess, gaps in what was going on in the employee experience, and as such, their financial performance. So we sat down, and the biggest presenting problem with that at the point, this is in mid 2018, was they were starting to get people leave the firm. So there was a churn, there's an employee churn. And they hadn't really assessed it in terms of the financial impact of the company. Just about 25% of their employee base, which at that time was about 70 to 75 employees, were leaving. And they paid well, they had great benefits, but they couldn't put their finger on it. And they'd had some traditional skills-based workshops, and try to stem this loss. And so I built a model with one of the founders. I said, let's examine the impact, which they had not done. And being engineers, I thought they would have done this, but we did it together. So it was a really useful exercise. So I'll share this with you. Just built it in Excel. We looked at their number of employees and at that point, their annual turnover rate of 25%, which was about 17.5, and started to identify the cost to them, which would show up on their P&L. So in any employee engagement, recruiting and onboarding, opportunity costs, because they're high caliber employees, they're all mechanical, electrical engineers. It's a fairly high cost, soft cost and hard cost factor that they incur. So broad stroke, it was costing about $1.6 million a year for people just that were coming in and out. And we built a premise and a hypothesis. What if we could reduce that churn by some factor? We said 20%. What would that do financially for the company? And the second part of that was engagement of employees that stayed. And we had talked a lot about Gallup data that at that point was suggesting somewhere in the term of 51 to 55% of employees are kind of disengaged. They're not really bought in. And the reasons we didn't get to at that point, we're just looking at symptoms. What was the company experiencing symptomatically? And then we put a number to that. So between turnover costs and engagement, it's a big number. It's like almost $2 million a year that the company was absorbing just on this disengagement. And it was a lot of pain for the founders, and it was creating a lot of sort of discomfort within the culture. So it was interesting. It was literally, I took the Harvard Business Review article that we got, that you handed off in Boston, is the real reason why people don't change. I just said, read this. This might be, there was something about it. It was a real breakthrough for the founders. I said, why don't we start with understanding not we identified the symptoms, but let's get at the cause. A lot of people that coach or train, specifically focus on changing behavior to address the symptoms. We wanted to look at, and the founders were, as an inflection point for them, they were really interested in what is going on inside this machine, this engine of this company that's creating this. So they were all in, the founders were, which was so helpful because having founder or senior executive buy-in was absolutely pivotal. So they could see the symptom and they were willing to, look a little bit deeper. And which ended up, how does that implicate me as a founder? How does it implicate the way I've been running, the company and managing my own things? So where we started, so that's the model we built.